She didn't even knock. She just walked across my lawn like she owned the place, dragging that long white charging cable behind her. I was inside making dinner for my daughter when the lights flickered. Then the power went out. I stepped outside and saw it. Her shiny red Tesla parked half inside my driveway. The charging cable was plugged straight into the outlet on the side of my garage. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't even look sorry. She flipped her sunglasses up and said, "Relax, it's just electricity. It's not like you'll miss it." That was my first mistake. I thought it was a one-time thing. Her name was Melissa, but everyone on the block called her Karen, president of the HOA, always holding a clipboard, always watching, always acting like she had power no one gave her. I had just moved in 2 months ago. Single dad, Army vet, bought this house with my savings and a VA loan. It wasn't big, but it was mine. I worked nights, kept to myself, and tried to stay out of drama. But Karen didn't like quiet people. Next morning, there was a bright orange notice on my door. Unauthorized vehicle storage. Lawn maintenance violation. Fence height violation. Violation? I had barely unpacked. I walked straight to her house. She was watering fake flowers. "You put this on my door?" I asked. She smiled in that fake sweet way. "You're not following community standards. And plugging into my power is community standard." She tilted her head. "The outlet is exposed. It's technically accessible. Read the bylaws." I knew that tone. I heard it before overseas. The kind of voice that thinks you won't push back. I didn't fight for this country to ask permission to use my own electricity, I said quietly. Her smile dropped. That night, it happened again. Lights flickered. Breaker tripped. I checked my security app. And there she was, 1:17 a.m., sneaking across my yard in slippers, plugging in her Tesla like some kind of raccoon stealing food. I saved the footage. The next day I installed a small lock box over the outlet. Nothing crazy, just basic protection. By evening, the lock was cut clean off. She left a note taped to it. HOA requires accessible exterior outlets for emergency community use. Emergency use. Charging her Tesla at midnight was an emergency. I went to the HOA office the following day. Empty desk, no staff, just her name on the door. That's when it clicked. She wasn't just the president, she was the entire board. No elections, no meetings, just her. When I got home, a tow truck was parked outside my house. My truck, my old Ford pickup, was being hooked up. "What's going on?" I shouted. The driver looked confused. "HOA order. Vehicle violates eco-compliance standards." Eco-compliance? In Texas? Karen stood across the street, arms folded, pretending to be on the phone. "You can't tow my truck," I said. She covered the phone speaker and said, "Community vote." There was no vote. She smiled. "You weren't invited." The tow truck driver hesitated. "Sir, I've got paperwork." I looked at it. Fake letterhead. Wrong HOA registration number. The signature didn't even match the county record. I checked when I bought the house. That's when I realized something bigger was going on. This wasn't about electricity. She wanted me gone. And I think I knew why. Across the street, her for sale sign had been up for 6 months. No buyers. Then I moved in, bought my house under market value from a foreclosure auction. Property values dipped. Her house didn't sell. So now she was trying to push me out, quietly. That night, I didn't say anything. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just waited. At exactly 12:43 a.m., her Tesla rolled slowly into my driveway again. No headlights, just that silent electric hum. She stepped out, looked around, and plugged in. Only this time, I had changed something. I leaned back in my chair, watching the live camera feed, and I whispered to myself, "You really should have checked who owns the grid before stealing power." Because what Karen didn't know was that the power running into my house wasn't controlled by the city anymore. And tomorrow morning, her perfect little Tesla was going to wake up very differently. I didn't sleep that night. I just watched the screen. She stood there for a few seconds after plugging in, checking her phone like she always did. Then she walked back across my lawn, confident, calm, sure that I wouldn't do anything. The cable stayed in, but what she didn't know was that 2 weeks ago, after the second time she tripped my breaker, I called a friend. Not the power company. A friend from my Army days. Ethan now works private energy contracts, solar grids, backup systems, off-grid installs for ranches and remote land. When I told him someone kept stealing power, He laughed and said, "You still trust public lines?" 3 days later, my house wasn't fully on city power anymore. Half solar, half battery reserve, and one small little device installed. Between the exterior outlet and the internal system, nothing illegal, nothing dangerous, just a smart energy regulator with surge protection and reverse flow detection. In simple words, if someone tried to pull heavy power without authorization, it shut down instantly and flagged a spike. And if someone forced it, it redirected the load into a closed-loop safety mode, completely harmless to my system, but brutal to whatever was pulling from it. At 1:02 a.m., the alert popped up. Unauthorized high load draw detected. She had set her Tesla to supercharge mode. Greedy. I tapped one setting on my phone. The regulator switched. For 3 seconds, everything stayed normal. Then, the Tesla lights flickered. The charging ring blinked red. Inside the car, the dashboard flashed error codes. And then the car shut down completely. Not exploded. Not burned. Just dead. Silent. Locked. I watched through the camera as Karen ran back across the yard in her slippers. "What did you do?" she shouted at the car. She unplugged it. Plugged it back in. Nothing. She tried the door handle. Locked. She pulled her phone out and tapped the Tesla app. I could see the panic on her face. Car offline. Battery fault. Powertrain error. She hit the window with her palm. "Come on." I leaned back and took a slow breath. "You wanted emergency access," I muttered. "Now you've got an emergency." She finally noticed the small sticker near the outlet. "Private grid system unauthorized access will trigger protection mode." She ripped it off. Too late. By morning, the tow truck was back. But this time, it wasn't my being hooked. Her Tesla sat lifeless in the street while the driver tried to manually unlock it. She was yelling. It was vandalized. My neighbor tampered with it. I stepped outside with coffee in my hand. "Morning," I said calmly. Her eyes burned into me. "You did something." "I locked my outlet," I replied. "You cut it. That car is worth more than your house. That electricity was mine." The tow truck driver interrupted. "Ma'am, Tesla says system overload, possible illegal draw or external surge. They need to inspect it." She pointed at me. "He rigged it." I pulled out my phone and showed the security footage. Clear view. Her walking over, cutting the lock, plugging in. 3 different nights. The driver looked at her slowly. "You told us this was a share outlet." Her face went pale. "It is HOA regulation. There is no active HOA registration on this street," the driver said, checking his tablet. That caught my attention. "What do you mean?" I asked. He turned the screen toward us. "HOA status dissolved 3 years ago." Karen froze. I looked at her. "You're not president of anything." She swallowed. "It's informal." "Informal?" I said softly. "You towed my truck under informal authority." The driver stepped back. "Ma'am, that paperwork you gave us last week, we're gonna need to recheck that." Her hands started shaking. "This is harassment. He's attacking my property value." There it was. Not rules. Not community. Money. Neighbors had started stepping outside by now. Phones out. Watching. One of them spoke up. "Wait. There's no HOA." An older man added, "She fined me $600 last year for mailbox color." Another woman said, "She made us repaint our garage." The street got quiet. Karen looked around like a trapped animal. I took one slow step forward. "You tried to control people using a title that doesn't exist." She whispered, "You don't understand how this works." "Oh," I said, holding out my phone. "I understand perfectly." Because while she was yelling at the tow truck, I had already made another call. Not to Tesla, not to the power company, but to the county clerk's office. And what they told me was going to end more than just her fake HOA. It was going to expose something much bigger. And when the police cruiser turned the corner at the end of the street, Karen's confidence disappeared completely. The police cruiser stopped right behind the tow truck. Karen straightened up fast. I could see her trying to rebuild that fake confidence. She pointed at me before the officer even stepped out. "That's him. He sabotaged my vehicle." The officer looked at her, then at the dead Tesla, then at me holding my coffee like this was just another Tuesday. "Morning," he said calmly. "Morning, officer," I replied. "You're going to want to see this." Karen cut in. "He installed some kind of illegal device. He caused a power surge. That's destruction of property." The officer turned to her. "Mom, Did you have permission to plug into his outlet? It's community property, she snapped. He checked his tablet. There is no registered HOA here. Her jaw tightened. It's private, internal. Ma'am, he said slowly, you can't enforce a dissolved association. That word hit the street hard. Dissolved. Neighbors started whispering. I handed the officer my phone. Security footage. 3 nights. She cut the lock on my outlet. He watched quietly. You could see the moment his expression changed. That's trespassing, he said. Karen laughed nervously. Oh please. It's a shared neighborhood space. It's his driveway. The officer replied. She pointed at the Tesla. My car is damaged. The tow truck driver cleared his throat. Tesla support says, BATTERY protection system triggered due to illegal draw attempt. They're asking how the vehicle was connected. Karen didn't answer. Because she couldn't. But this wasn't the real twist. The officer turned to me. Sir, earlier this week a towing complaint was filed under your address. Said your vehicle violated HOA eco standards. That was her, I said. Karen's face changed again. He doesn't follow guidelines. His truck leaks oil. It doesn't, I said flatly. The officer looked at his screen again. The tow authorization form used a county seal. Silence. He zoomed in. That seal is outdated. We stopped using that version 2 years ago. The air shifted. I watched Karen's hands start to shake. You forged county documents? The officer asked. She tried to speak but nothing came out at first. It's just formatting. That's impersonating a regulatory authority, he said. One of the neighbors whispered. Oh my God. Karen snapped. You don't understand. If property values drop, we all suffer. There is no we, I said quietly. There's just you. The officer turned to her again. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me. For what? She demanded. For questioning regarding falsifying documents and unlawful towing authorization. The words hit her harder than anything else that morning. This is insane, she yelled. He destroy my Tesla. I finally set my coffee down. I locked my outlet. You forced it. That system protects my home from overload. It doesn't damage vehicles. It shuts them down. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You planned this, she whispered. No. I said calmly. I prepared. That lie made one neighbor actually clap. But then something happened I didn't expect. The officer's radio crackled. Dispatch confirmed something else. There were multiple complaints filed under Karen's name over the past year. Unauthorized fines, threat letters, fake violation notices. Even one elderly couple who paid her thousands to avoid legal action. The officer looked at her differently now. This isn't just about a car, he said. Karen's voice broke. They agreed to pay. They were scared. I replied. She looked around the street. Nobody was on her side anymore. Phones were still recording. Whispers were turning into anger. The officer gently took her wrist. You're not under arrest at this moment, he said carefully, but you are being detained pending investigation. Her shoulders dropped. As they walked her toward the cruiser, she turned back toward me. You think you won, she said. I didn't answer right away. Because here's the part she still didn't know. I hadn't just installed a regulator. I had also filed something at the county office 3 weeks ago. A quiet little request to review property boundary adjustments and shared utility access rights for the entire block. Because when I checked the original land survey after moving in, I noticed something strange. Her driveway. Part of it wasn't actually hers, and when the officer closed the cruiser door, a black SUV turned slowly onto our street. County Land Management. Karen saw it through the window, and for the first time, she looked scared for real. The black SUV stopped right in front of Karen's house. Two county officials stepped out. Clipboards, measuring tools, calm faces. Karen was still sitting in the back of the cruiser when she saw them walk toward her driveway. She pressed her hands against the window. No. 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 The officer glanced at her. Something wrong. That land is mine, she said quickly. They can't just. But they already were. One of the officials stretched a measuring tape from the edge of her driveway across the grass line, then across the sidewalk, then toward my side of the property. Neighbors were fully outside now. Phones up. Whispers louder. I stayed quiet. 3 weeks ago, when I pulled my property survey from county records, I noticed something odd. The original boundary markers didn't match the current driveway layout. Someone had extended concrete about 3 feet past the legal line, 3 feet into the utility easement, 2 feet into my side setback. At first, I thought it was a clerical mistake. It wasn't. One of the officials knocked on the cruiser window. "Ma'am, when was your driveway extended?" Karen tried to keep her voice steady. "It's always been like that." The official shook his head. "Permit shows no approved modification. And this section here." He pointed to the edge near the sidewalk. "This overlaps shared utility access. That's a violation." She looked at me through the glass like this was all my fault. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. The official continued. "Also, this charging station installed on the side, there's no electrical permit filed." The officer turned slowly. "Charging station?" Karen's voice cracked. "It's temporary. It's wired into the main line," the official replied calmly. "Without inspection." That changed everything. Because now this wasn't about her using my outlet. It was about her installing unapproved electrical modifications tied into a public line. The officer stepped aside and made another call. Karen's breathing got heavier. "The neighbors started talking openly now. She fined me for a garden gnome," one woman said. "She said my American flag was the wrong size," a man added. "She charged us for $100 for trash bin placement," someone else said. The anger was building, but I wasn't done. I walked toward the county official and handed him a folder. Inside were printed screenshots, security footage, copies of fake violation letters she issued, and the tow authorization form with a forged county seal. I said quietly. He flipped through the pages. His face hardened. "This is serious," he muttered. Behind us, Karen suddenly started yelling inside the cruiser. "She's kicking the door," the officer said into his radio. The second patrol car arrived 5 minutes later. They opened the back door and asked her to step out. This time, they placed her hands behind her back. And this time, they didn't say detained. They said arrested. The charge: preliminary suspicion of fraud and impersonation of regulatory authority. When the cuffs clicked, the street went silent. Karen looked at me one last time. "You ruined everything," she said. I finally answered, "No, you did." They placed her in the second cruiser. But here's the twist she never saw coming. As the patrol cars pulled away, the county official walked toward me again. "There's something else," he said. I frowned. "What?" He held up the original land survey. "The easement she built over. It doesn't just overlap yours," he pointed to a shaded section. "It overlaps a buried utility conduit, fiber line." My stomach tightened. "That line feeds half the block." He nodded slowly. "If her driveway extension damaged or restricted access to that line, she's looking at federal utility obstruction charges." I let that sink in. This had started with electricity theft. Now it was federal territory. The black SUV stayed for hours. They marked the driveway, took photos, measured everything. By evening, an official notice was taped to her front door. "Unauthorized structure, subject to removal." Neighbors gathered around reading it like it was a movie script. An older man turned to me. "You knew all this?" I shook my head. "I just wanted my power back." But that wasn't fully true, because when I moved in, I did my homework. I always do. Army habit: check maps, check exits, check ownership. I don't step onto land without knowing exactly where I stand. And Karen made one mistake. She thought I was just some quiet guy with an old truck and a small house. She never asked what I did before. She never checked why my security system was military grade. She never wondered why the county clerk returned my call personally. That evening, I got a message from Ethan. "Looks like your grid worked." I typed back. "She overloaded her own system." He replied, "You didn't push extra voltage, right?" I stared at the screen for a second. "Nope. Just protection mode." And that was true. The regulator doesn't attack. It defends. But here's where things turned again. The next morning, a black sedan pulled into my driveway. Not county, not police. 2 men in suits stepped out. Federal Energy Compliance Division. I raised an eyebrow. One of them spoke calmly. "We're here regarding a flagged grid interference alert." I stepped aside. "Coming." Inside my garage, I showed them the regulator system, explained the solar backup, explained the reverse flow detection. They inspected everything carefully. "You installed this legally?" one asked. "Fully permitted. Inspected last week." He nodded. Then he looked at me closely. "You're former military?" "Yes." "Signal Corps?" That surprised me. "Yet." He smiled faintly. We saw the wiring layout. That was the moment I realized something. They weren't here to accuse me. They were here because her illegal charger installation triggered a wider grid alert when it failed. She didn't just steal from me. She tapped improperly into a shared utility path. They left after 40 minutes. Clean bill. No violations. As they stepped out, one of them said something I won't forget. Most people complain. You prepared. That line stayed with me. But Karen's story wasn't finished. 2 days later, news spread fast. Local social media exploded. Fake HOA president arrested. Woman accused of fraud and utility tampering. Turns out, she had been collecting HOA fees for 3 years. There was no account, no board. The money went straight into her personal business account. Over $82,000. Neighbors were furious. An elderly couple showed up at my door with tears in their eyes. She said she'd put a lien on our home. The husband told me, for a bird feeder, his wife whispered. I felt something heavy in my chest. Not anger, not victory, just relief. Relief that it was over. But it still wasn't the final twist. A week later, I got a certified letter from her lawyer. Claim of damages, accusing me of intentional interference with her vehicle. I read it twice. Then I smiled, because attached to that letter was something interesting. A repair estimate from Tesla. Battery module fried due to unauthorized grid surge. I called Ethan immediately. That's impossible, he said. Your regulator caps output. It can't surge. I know. We pulled system logs. Time stamped. Voltage steady. Load redirected internally. No outward spike, which meant only one thing. Her illegal charger setup backed into her own vehicle when protection mode triggered. She didn't damage her Tesla because of me. She damaged it because she cut safety corners on her own wiring. And that changed everything. I forwarded the logs to her lawyer, and I added one sentence. You might want to request her charging installation permits. 3 days later, the lawsuit threat disappeared. No follow-up, no court date, nothing. Then came the final blow. County issued a demolition order on the driveway extension. She had 30 days to remove it at her expense, but she was already out on bail, facing fraud charges. She couldn't afford it. The bank stepped in. Turns out, she refinanced her house using the fake HOA income as proof of revenue. Dank fraud. That was the moment I understood something deep. She didn't hate me. She feared losing control. And control built on lies always collapses loudly. 2 months later, her house was listed again. But this time, no fake authority, no fines, no threats, just a quiet for sale sign. The day the moving truck came, I stood on my porch with my daughter. Is she gone forever? She asked. Yeah. I said softly, because you're stronger. I looked down at her. No. I said, because truth is stronger. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. The neighborhood changed after that. People talked more, helped each other. No more orange notices. No more fake fines. Just families. Real ones. And every time I plug something into my outlet now, I remember that first night. Her cables stretched across my lawn. Her voice saying, it's not like you'll miss it. She was wrong. It was never about electricity. It was about respect. And here's the line people on this street still repeat. Never try to control land you don't legally own, because sometimes the quiet neighbor you try to push around is the one who already checked every map. And if you ever try to steal power from someone who built his own grid, don't be surprised when the only thing that shuts down. 3 months passed. Her house finally sold. Not for what she wanted. Not even close. No one wanted to buy the fake HOA lady's place. The story had spread far beyond our street. Local news ran it. Online pages shared it. People love seeing fake power fall apart. The day she came back to collect the last of her things, she didn't look at anyone. No sunglasses, no clipboard, no loud voice, just quiet. I was fixing my fence when she walked past. For a second, I thought she might say something. She stopped near the edge of my driveway, the real edge this time. After the illegal extension was torn out and replaced with plain concrete, she looked at the outlet on my garage wall. Still locked. Still labeled. She gave a small, tired laugh. All this, over a charger, she said. I stood up slowly. No. I reply. All this over boundaries. She didn't argue, because she knew. The fake HOA was gone. The fines were refunded by court order. The elderly couple got their money back. The forged documents became evidence. The federal utility violation added pressure to her case. In the end, she took a plea deal. No prison time, heavy fines, permanent ban from holding any community leadership position tied to property associations. The woman who acted like she owned the neighborhood couldn't even sit on a future HOA board again. When the moving truck doors closed, she looked at me one last time. "You could have just talked to me," she said. I held her gaze. I did. She didn't answer that, because she remembered the first night when I calmly said, "That's my electricity," and she smiled like it didn't matter. After she left, something strange happened. The block felt lighter. Neighbors started having small cookouts. Kids played outside again. No one worried about orange papers taped to their doors. One Saturday evening, the older man she once fined for his mailbox walked over with a plate of burgers. "You changed this street," he said. I shook my head. "I just protected my house." He smiled. "Sometimes that's enough." Later that night, I sat on the porch with my daughter. The solar lights along the walkway glowed softly. "Daddy," she asked, "why didn't you just fight her louder?" I thought about that, because I could have yelled, could have escalated, could have embarrassed her publicly from day one. But that's not how you win long battles. You don't fight nose with nose, I told her. You fight lies with proof. She leaned against my arm. The street was quiet, peaceful. And that's when I realized the real twist of the whole story. Karen thought power meant control. She thought authority came from fear. She thought people would always back down. But real power, it's knowing the law. It's keeping records. It's staying calm when someone tries to provoke you. It's building your own grid instead of begging to use someone else's. Weeks later, I got one final letter. Not from her. From the county. Official confirmation that the easement had been fully restored and my property line re-verified. Stamped, signed, clear. I framed it. Not because I needed to, but because it reminded me of something important. This country runs on rules, not on whoever yells the loudest. And every time I plug something into that outlet now, I double-check the lock, not out of fear, out of principle. Because here's the line my neighbors still laugh about. She tried to steal electricity and ended up losing her entire house. But for me, it was simpler than that. I didn't destroy her Tesla. I didn't destroy her driveway. I didn't destroy her fake HOA. She did. All I did was refuse to let someone treat my home like it didn't belong to me. And if there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's this. Never confuse kindness for weakness, and never assume the quiet neighbor doesn't know exactly where the power switch is. The grid still hums softly at night, but now, it only powers my home.